The coffin was already closed when I got the results, and by then it was too late to confront her. My name is Naomi Rivers, and until the day of my husband's funeral, I believed two things with absolute certainty. One, that I was married to a good man. Two, that our daughter was ours. But the moment I saw my mother-in-law gripping a sealed envelope with my name on it, her hands shaking, her face pale, it was as if the floor opened beneath me. Because that envelope held a DNA report, and the version she handed me was fake. Let me take you back. Just 1 week before the funeral, I was sitting at my husband Ryan's hospital bedside. He was unconscious, hooked up to machines, tubes everywhere. I was clutching his hand, whispering, "Please, just stay. Just one more day." And right across the room, pretending to cry, was Margaret, my mother-in-law. A woman who had always acted like I wasn't good enough for her son. Always polite in public, but behind closed doors. She kept score, made comments, asked who our daughter really resembled. I brushed it off as grief, until the night before Ryan died. That night I saw her sneaking out of the hospital room at 2 a.m. She thought I was asleep in the chair. She didn't see me follow her. She went straight to the hospital's records department. I confronted her in the hallway. "Margaret, what are you doing down here?" She fumbled with her purse. "Nothing, Naomi, just asking about Ryan's chart, routine stuff." But when I glanced at the paper in her hand, well, it didn't have Ryan's name. It had our daughter's. I didn't understand it then. But I took a picture of it just in case. A document request form for a DNA test. The next day, Ryan's condition worsened. He passed away quietly in the early morning hours. The machines flatlined while I held his hand. I felt something inside me break. And while I was planning the funeral, Margaret was doing something else. 2 days later, I got a call. A hospital staff member, anonymous, told me someone had submitted 2 different samples under Ryan's name. One for him, and one for a woman who wasn't me. They said the results were expedited, picked up by someone claiming to be next of kin. I knew it was Margaret, but I had no proof. Yet, then the day of the funeral arrived. Everyone was seated. The casket was already closed. Margaret came to me holding an envelope. "This is for you," she said. "I thought it would give you closure." She looked so calm. I opened the envelope later that night. The document said, "Paternity inconclusive. Child not biologically related to Ryan Rivers." I dropped it. I couldn't breathe. But something didn't sit right. The formatting was different than hospital-issued reports I'd seen before. So I did something I didn't think I had the strength to do. I ordered a new test, and while I waited for the real results, I found the original report hidden in the bottom drawer of Margaret's study, with a different conclusion entirely. Child is biologically related to both Ryan Rivers and Naomi Rivers. Gusib gujom gupyosin to mechi. She had changed it, destroyed the truth, and she had done it before the coffin was even in the ground. If I hadn't found that drawer, I'd still be mourning a lie. When I read the real report, I sat on Margaret's guest room floor, stunned, tears falling, hands shaking. Because not only had she lied to me, she tried to erase my daughter. The child Ryan loved, the child we raised together. I didn't confront her immediately. I wanted her to feel safe, confident. Because when people feel powerful, they make mistakes. I slid the real report into my purse, left the fake one exactly where it was. And I began my own investigation. First stop, the hospital. I used my power of attorney to request security footage from the records office. After 3 hours of red tape, a nurse handed me a USB drive and whispered, "I know what she did. I just couldn't say it before." That night I watched the footage. At 2:17 a.m., clear as day. Margaret, slipping a document into her bag, then replacing a sealed folder on the desk. She had stolen the real report and replaced it with the forged one. She didn't even hesitate. The next day, I visited Ryan's older sister, Leah. She'd always been distant, the family's quiet observer. But when I mentioned the DNA report, her face turned white. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said. I froze. "You knew?" Leah swallowed hard. "Not the details, but I knew Mom was planning something. Ryan and I had a fight about it 2 months ago." That was the first time I'd heard about the fight. According to Leah, Ryan had discovered that Margaret had taken out a life insurance policy in his name months before he got sick. A massive one. And the beneficiary, Margaret, not me, not our daughter, his mother. Leah said Ryan was furious. He had the paperwork changed right before the cancer diagnosis came. He never told me. Maybe he thought he had more time. But Margaret knew she was about to lose everything. The policy, her control, her image, and she needed a new way to delegitimize me. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just trying to disinherit me. She was trying to claim that I had tricked Ryan, that I'd passed off another man's child as his, to destroy me, in public, in court, in family memory. She was preparing to rewrite his legacy, to make me the villain, and herself the grieving, betrayed mother. But the real report, and now the life insurance records, were proof of her plan. Still, I needed more. Something that would make even her friends turn against her. I remembered something Ryan once said during a fight. Something I brushed off back then. "I can't stand the way she still talks to your father." I thought he meant my dad, but he didn't. He meant his. That night I opened the attic. Dust everywhere, old boxes, family albums. And at the very bottom, I found letters from Ryan's father, dates written in ink. Letters he'd sent to Ryan after their divorce. Letters Ryan had never shown me. Because in those letters, Ryan's father said, "Margaret tried to convince me you weren't mine. That's why I left. I didn't want to stay married to a woman who used paternity as a weapon." It had happened before. This wasn't Margaret's first time. This was her pattern. The worst part wasn't what she did. It was how quickly everyone believed her. Armed with the letters, the original DNA report, and the life insurance documents, I was ready to expose Margaret. But I wasn't the only one preparing. Because just as I called a meeting with Ryan's siblings, Margaret struck first. She gathered the entire family at her house for what she called a memorial brunch. No one invited me. I only found out from Leah, who texted me while sitting at the table. "You need to come. Now she's telling people your daughter isn't Ryan's." I dropped everything and drove straight there. When I walked in, every eye turned toward me. The air was thick, judgmental, cold. And Margaret? She stood up with an expression of forced sadness. "Naomi," she said in a sickeningly sweet voice, "I was just telling them about the report you found." She held up her version of the DNA test, the forged one. "I know this must be hard," she said, "but we all deserve the truth. Ryan would have wanted honesty." Someone gasped. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." I felt dizzy until I pulled out the real report. The room fell dead silent. Then I opened my bag. and pulled out the life insurance document too. Did Ryan also want you to be the sole beneficiary of his policy? I said. The one you took out behind his back? Margaret's face cracked for the first time. I handed the letters to Leah. She read them aloud, Ryan's father's words echoing in that quiet living room like a ghost finally speaking. Margaret tried to convince me Ryan wasn't mine. She's done this before. Suddenly, Leah stood up. Is it true? She asked Margaret, shaking. Did you do this to Dad too? Margaret tried to deny it, but the cracks were showing. The cousins, aunts, uncles, all shifting in their seats, doubt blooming like wildfire. She exploded. I did what I had to do. Naomi was manipulating him. That child isn't part of this family. And that's when my daughter walked in. She had heard it all. My sweet, innocent 10-year-old daughter, standing in the doorway, eyes wide. Grandma, she said softly, why don't you want me to be part of the family? Margaret froze, stammered, then stormed upstairs. No one followed her. That night, Leah called me. I believe you, and I'm sorry it took me this long. She told me several family members had decided to cut ties with Margaret. The life insurance company had also flagged her account for fraud. But Margaret wasn't done yet. The next morning, I woke to a letter taped to my front door. A cease and desist. Margaret had hired a lawyer. She was trying to sue me for defamation. But when I called the firm listed on the letter, they told me something Margaret hadn't counted on. She'd forged Ryan's medical power of attorney and left a digital trail. Now she was under investigation. And this time, she wouldn't be able to lie her way out. She tried to rewrite history, but I left the courtroom with the truth and my daughter's hand in mine. Within 2 weeks, the legal system caught up to Margaret. She had forged multiple documents. Ryan's medical consent forms, a fake affidavit claiming she was executor of his estate, and of course, the altered DNA report. I turned everything over to the investigators. I thought it would be a long battle, but Margaret cracked fast. She took a plea deal to avoid prison. Her assets were frozen. She lost all rights to Ryan's estate, and most of all, her reputation, the one thing she valued most, was destroyed. At the final court hearing, she sat with her head down. She never looked at me, but I stared directly at her when the judge read the sentence. Your actions were deliberate, malicious, and cruel. You weaponized grief and deception to rob your own granddaughter of her legacy. You are hereby barred from contact. After the case closed, Leah gave me something she'd found in a box of Ryan's things. A letter written by Ryan and addressed to me. Naomi, I've seen what Mom is trying to do. I wanted to handle it myself, but my body's failing faster than I expected. I just want you to know, I never doubted for a second that she's mine. You're the love of my life. Don't let her rewrite our story. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Because even in his final days, Ryan had known, and he fought for us until the end. A month later, I hosted a small memorial just for close friends and family. We lit candles, shared stories, and I read Ryan's letter aloud. As I finished, my daughter looked up at me and said, "Does this mean we don't have to be scared anymore?" I held her close. No, baby, not anymore. No one gets to take our truth again. I changed my last name after that, not out of shame, but to build something new. My daughter and I moved into a cozy house in a quiet town. I started a community legal support group for women who faced family coercion and will fraud. We called it Truth in the Bloodline. And every time I walk past the old photo of Ryan holding our daughter as a baby, I smile. Because now I know. They tried to replace my truth with a lie. But the truth, it survived.